It's cost me a lot on the personal. I've had to sacrifice a lot of personal relationships and working all the time. Even now, I'm working 7 days a week, and it's a little easier now because I can take a vacation in the summer, and we take a vacation around the winter holidays, and
Mm.
but there was a lot of years without any vacation at all. Just trying to hold on. It didn't come easy to me either because I'm a first generation college student.
My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path. We're pleased to welcome Professor Brent Metz to the program today. He's a professor of anthropology at the University of Kansas and also the director of the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and for our regular listeners, if you recall a podcast from a month or so ago when my son Luke was on, and we were talking about intelligence and wisdom. And when I asked Luke who of his professors did he feel like were wise, you were one of the ones that he mentioned on the podcast. And here you are.
Well, that's quite an honor coming from Luke because he's one of the best students I've ever had.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, he very much enjoyed his time with you. Yeah.
We hit it off well.
Yeah. So what do you think about that, being a wise man?
I wouldn't label myself as wise, but I'm more humble than that. But I think I understand the distinction between wisdom, in regards to making good decisions versus, being able to understand and connect information. That's one thing, and the wisdom and knowing what to do with it is a whole nother thing. So, like I say, Luke attributing that to me. I don't know if everyone would in my social circles, but I think that a lot of people, if not everyone, has their strengths. We in social sciences we talk about different kinds of IQ. There's an IQ is a very cultural instrument. You wouldn't do an IQ test on an Australian Aborigine because unless it was they designed it themselves. Because intelligence and wisdom are culturally specific. But there, we hear them expanding that because of the dissatisfaction with IQ and how it hasn't been culturally contextual. You see expansions of intelligence, but also wisdom and along the lines of EQ or emotional intelligence. How do you work under pressure? Or how do you deal with difficult emotions, which is your expertise. That's a different kind of smarts, than doing a calculus equation, but I think a lot of people have strengths and experiences that they don't always recognize. I know that's the case with my students.
Yeah.
They can take a semester-long course with me, and I'll hear them talking out in the hallway, and somebody asks them, "Well, what did you learn?" It's like nothing. But they clearly learned a lot. Otherwise, they wouldn't have passed the class. And the things that they learn that we often don't recognize. Emotional strength, organization, ability to think outside the box. These are kinds of unconscious strengths we pick up with experience.
Yeah.
Experience and experience at my age is something I have. And so I and I believe that of everybody too. I have always looked up to my elders, sometimes too much,
Mm.
for the experiences they have and for the traditions they carry and for the respect. I kind of grew up in a conservative household in a conservative area of southwestern Michigan.
Okay.
And in conservative areas, there's the issue of seniority, and respecting your elders is a big thing.
Mm.
I can't say that I am conservative anymore, but some of those values from childhood stick with me. Some of them I've managed to shake for better, I think.
Mm.
But age and experience and seniority is kind of automatic for me unless I start consciously reflecting on that.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so
Yeah.
I was thinking about your students in the hallway and thinking that with
mhm.
experience, they will come to a much greater appreciation of what they actually did learn.
Mhm.
I hope so. And
Yeah.
usually, and career centers now in universities are all about um, getting them to reflect, encouraging them to reflect on how they do things different and better, than
Mm.
than through a college class. I teach a course called Indigenous Traditions of Latin America to first semester, first year students, or
Mm.
freshmen or first year students, and um, they haven't quite learned yet to reflect on what they're getting. And they may never use Indigenous Traditions of Latin America, the content of that course, but they will be able to think outside the box. They'll be to think from other people's perspectives. They'll be able to respect other opinions. They'll know a lot more about their own history, and the history of the world. So they'll have a bigger picture to work with. They have to be organized. If they're not organized, they won't keep up with the readings and they won't do well on their exams and assignments. So there's a lot of things that they're practicing that
Right.
they don't necessarily recognize.
Mhm. Yeah, I was thinking about we did a podcast episode early on, Brent, where Walker has, I don't know what word you would use, developed a deep appreciation for one of his college professors, and how much it was that she, I don't know, offered you, showed you, taught you, exposed you to. What would you say that experience was? How would you define that?
It was her name was Dr. Betty Scott, and she taught a class on creative process. And
Mm,
so she was
great
given,
class.
it was liberal arts, given really broad leeway to just open us up
Yeah,
to so many different approaches to creativity. And it was just amazing experience. And
that sounds like a fantastic class.
I think of her often and am very appreciative for her efforts to, help us
Yeah,
through
yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah. I have my own professors that I realized how much they've influenced me. Teachers, high school teachers, right through grade school, and I'm sorry that I have not, sought them out and
Mhm.
told, a lot of them are no longer here. Um,
Yeah.
but I wish I could thank them now that I realize how they set me in, my unique path.
Mhm.
And we all owe it to the people before us who guided us, steered us, whether they wanted to or not.
Yeah.
Um, you know, their example.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
whether we made it easy or not, especially in the earlier years. I can remember a few that I'm sure I tortured.
Yes, I really. That's the other thing. I'd like to go back to my high school teachers and apologize. Some of them, some of them. Yeah.
Oh
And
my
all who
goodness.
you're with too. I mean, the chemistry among youth can go really off in the wrong direction sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So, an amazing teacher or professor can make such a huge impact.
Mhm.
And it seems like you appreciate that from personal experience, and that you're trying to share some of that wisdom with your students now. What else motivates you, or what brought you to this place?
Mhm.
Well, I tell you, and college had a lot to do with it for me. I grew
Hmm.
up in a very conservative area. Like I said, I went to a Lutheran school from K through 8,
Mhm.
which I really appreciate, but I kind of outgrew that. I appreciate what they provided to me, a lot of attention.
Mhm.
I had difficulty reading and math, but I got a lot of attention because it was a small school and my
Hmm.
teachers were
Yeah,
great.
that's great.
Um, But they also taught me things along the lines of it was kind of a fundamentalist, and if this doesn't jive with the direct interpretation of the Bible, then it's evil or comes from Satan or something. And that runs obviously against the grain of college, where
Mhm.
it's all about learning. There's kind of two ways to look at religion: fundamentalism and reading text literally, or reading them symbolically. And
Mhm.
if you're a believer in God and God created everything, well, then should be able to study everything to understand and appreciate God,
Mm.
not
Mhm.
just some rigid, unchanging text, you know. And so it was my college professors that really liberated me, um, and allowed me to think openly and discover and create and be curious. Um, and when I was in college, I started out very kind of unreflective about politics.
Mhm.
But then I was exposed to the US involvement in the Central American Wars, about nuclear weapons. It was back in that era in the 1980s.
Mhm.
I found out about massacres that the United States had been involved in or was trying to sweep under the rug. Um, and um, it was depressing. It was
Mhm.
depressing. It changed my life for the worse, really, at that point, because I was kind of rosy-eyed, rose-colored glasses, and then I realized, we began to see how the problems in the world, and some of them caused by people like me, and,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and some of it's just flat ignorance, and being uncurious about what my government's doing or other people are doing. So I've never looked back, from my undergraduate days, um, when I got to rub shoulders with my professors and found out about um, problems around the world, problems for indigenous people, that history of indigenous people especially impacted me. It just seemed so unjust and unlike any Hollywood movie where
Mhm.
the good guys always end out up on the top at the end. Well, that often does not happen with history. You got to fight for that very hard. Oftentimes, history does not end up with the
Right.
good guys winning. And so I just felt like I needed to try to correct some, or try to help and turn the tables a little bit. And and
Mhm.
and for me, the best way to do that is teaching and research. So Um, I changed a lot as an undergrad. I started out in industrial engineering.
Oh,
'Cause that's what
nice.
my
Yeah.
guidance counselor told me to do. I mean, there were jobs in that, and the money was good. I did fine in science and math, but I was pretty bored with it.
Mhm.
I have to say, just didn't light a fire under me. And I had taken a class from his history professor, Dr. Paul Meyer, who was actually a Lutheran minister.
Hmm.
I was told by my grandpa, who was also Lutheran, and all of his, like, 4 generations back, were Lutheran ministers. But I took a class from Paul Meyer, who was a 10 Outstanding Educator of America awardee twice, if I understand right.
Wow.
My
Nice.
God, he just turned history. He just made it a living history. His teaching of history, and put it all into context. That's one of the problems with my students is they don't necessarily have a broad historical knowledge. And so
Okay.
when I teach them about, well, this happened in 1523 in, New Spain in the Spanish colonies, they have a hard time putting it into context. You have to really couch these things and what else is going on in the world at that time. And a lot of students don't know. I mean, I've had students didn't know when World War II happened, you know. But I'm old too, so I know when World War II happened because that was still kind of in my memory of my life. Didn't live there and fight there, but it was a big thing. Growing up, remembering World War II. I mean, it was the reverberations of that were still strong when I grew up, and so he put it all into context for me, and it was. I took 2 classes from him, and that set me on a new direction. Plus the politics and learning about U.S. involvement and learning about nuclear weapons and the possibility to destroy everything set me on a new path. And I ended up changing majors, 4 different kind of majors, and until I ended up in cultural anthropology. And I was told by my career counselor, I don't see you being an academic. You change so much every semester, every year, you're changing all the time. And in an academic career, you got to stick with this for 20 years. From now, you won't be settled down with tenure, probably for another 20 years or so, where you can finally take a breather and relax and start enjoying life a little bit more. And he said, I don't think you can do it. And it's like, thank you for saying that, because that did light a fire under me. It's like and he's true. It was true. How many of my colleagues and friends have I seen go by the wayside, just abandon the process, for better or for worse. I'm not saying that I'm smart by sticking with academics. There's some, some people might question my wisdom on that one, but I was determined. And I was determined to do academics, and I was also determined to shed light on histories and cultures, and kind of set the record straight and expose people to things that they're usually not exposed to, students. So that's how I help. My help isn't political organization. I'm miserable at that. It's not, going fighting someplace, or I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can help people who have experienced injustice. Teaching is it for me. And I'm not the most outstanding teacher in the world, but I've gotten pretty good at it. Gotten pretty good at it over the decades.
Have you ever wanted to chuck a loved one out a window? Like, not literally, but emotionally?
Maybe
I have. Yep.
literally.
If so, we were thinking that our Healthier Relationships course might be something that you want to give a look at.
Yeah, we really recommend it. We put a lot of work into it, and with the holidays coming up, we recognize there can be joy and happiness, but there can also be a lot of anxiety and fear as we come into contact with people in our families. It's just the reality of the situation. We really think the Healthier Relationships can help you be more intentional and less reactive going in. And if you or a loved one face those situations, we really hope that you'll check out the course.
Yeah, what I really believe is that when we can build those skills and we feel more confident and competent in how to interact with people in our families and our loved ones, that overall the situations are just less stressful. We feel more grounded. We feel more integrous. We feel more empowered.
And we're offering 25% off for this holiday season. So gift it to yourself or gift it to a loved one.
Yeah, we hope you'll join us. Thanks.
One of the words that you use quite a bit, Brent, is reflected or reflective. When do you remember in your life where you became even aware of reflecting on yourself and your choices?
I do. There was a careers course I took,
Mm.
and I did have the presence of mind to take that careers course at Western Michigan University. It was just a 1 credit course, and they wanted us to get to know ourselves before we picked a career. And there were tests that you did, but there were also classes, and discussions. And I had never been in high school, we didn't have kind of discussion-based classes. It was just, the teachers taught us, and I remember them telling me to, look at my feelings and everything. And I started crying as a freshman or first year student as I thought of some of the things that had frustrated me. Um, and how life didn't go perfectly as I had anticipated, and I was deathly shy at that time too. I didn't really know how to speak to girls or anything, so I was lonely in that sense. um, and that was really the first time I kind of thought, geez, I'm not completely satisfied with how things are going here. Um, but I have been reflected before too. I can remember once we used to pray for everything in the Lutheran school. If you want something, you pray to God, and by the grace of God, please help me win this baseball game, or help me do well in this baseball game. But then I began to think, and this is like 10 or 11 years old, what about the kids on the other team? What if they're praying too? Why would God pick me and my team over that team? And so those kinds of religious reflections happened as early as 10, 11, 12 years old, and made me start wondering about other people, thinking about other people. What if they're not even Christian? They all going to hell? Are we the God's chosen or what here? And so I had to think of, I think, I don't know if I was forced to confront that, but I did confront it, even those kinds of religious beliefs. And I'm enmeshed in religion, at that age, because I'm going to a Lutheran school.
Yeah.
A fundamentalist Lutheran school on top of it. So I started to think outside the box, and I've always had kind of I wouldn't I've used humor a lot, sarcasm a lot throughout my life, even as a little kid, sarcastic remarks. And sarcasm means that you are about things. There's always an edge to humor, because you're kind of turning things upside down to show how crazy they are, or how they're not inevitable. And things could be done other ways, and there's no logic, not necessarily logic in what you're doing and thinking and speaking. So that came at an early age too, where I'm just cracking jokes, usually making fun of the way things are done. So
Yeah.
back a while. It goes back a while, but there were big holes in myself that I was not catching, that I discovered in college when I took that course, when I had to start thinking about my feelings. And it's like, ooh, I'd never done that before.
Yeah, not
I think
something
that's a
that
male thing. That might be a male thing. We weren't really.
Well,
I don't know.
I would, as in my opinion,
Mhm.
Brent, it is not a male thing.
No.
It is a people thing. I have just as many female clients that struggle to identify their emotional experience as men do. Yeah. Women may talk more.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They're more expressive to each
Yeah,
other.
but not necessarily. Like, I can often reflect back to a female, oh, you're angry or sad or feeling abandoned or lonely, and they will struggle with identifying their experience. So they may have more. They may be used to expressing themselves more. I don't know that they're more accurate. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's true. You need a mirror. You need other people as your mirror and have to listen to them. That's where a
Yes.
lot of wisdom comes in, is bouncing yourself off of other people, I think. Yeah. Of course,
All
we
from
resist that
years.
too, I have to say. I can resist that as well as anybody.
Yes, we do.
Which is a wise statement in and of itself. Right, I have to remember, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm interested in decision-making processes as part of the My Inner Knowing framework that's the basis of our podcast. And it's interesting to me that one of the like a big decision point for you is going into the guidance counselor and talking about being an academic. And it's the no, I don't think you're cut out for that. That was a big motivator in that decision process. Can you tell us more how that worked itself through you?
Yes, I mean, it's something when someone tells you you can't do something, or that the odds aren't good for you. And I've told that to students myself, and I have motivated them. There's a colleague of mine, I won't identify him or her, but I told them, boy, this was back in the 90s. It is really tough to make it in this profession. Now, in anthropology, you might have 420 PhD graduates a year and only 100 job openings, and so
Wow.
you put in all this work, and usually an anthropology degree goes between or a PhD 5 to 8 years at the graduate level,
Wow.
and then you get out and you can't get a job, or the only job offer you get is in Alaska or Mississippi or someplace where you don't necessarily want to go, and and then the pay is not great, and so on and so forth, and I told that person, I don't know if you want to do this, and frankly, I didn't think the odds were good. In fact, told a student that too, that was very devoted to this career, and sure enough, those are the two who made it. Those are the two that made it, and made it well. And one of them has done very well for himself, and I couldn't really envision it. So, that's the proper response, I think. You either let it go or you put 110% into it, but you can't go in between. You can't do things lackadaisical. And so he made me realize that. Also, when I started graduate school at the University of Michigan, our chair reinforced that at the time. We were just our new orientation in anthropology at Michigan, which is a very prestigious department. And she said something like 68% of you won't graduate.
Yeah.
We were just like shocked. It's like, this is not what we wanted to hear in the first week of graduate school, but we needed to hear it, that the odds are against us. And so you have to work really hard. And so I wanted to go for it. And I did, but that has cost me a lot. It's cost me a lot on the personal. I've had to sacrifice a lot of personal relationships, and working all the time. Even now I'm working 7 days a week, and it's a little easier now because I can take a vacation in the summer, and we take a vacation around the winter holidays, and
Mm.
but there was a lot of years without any vacation at all, just trying to hold on. It didn't come easy to me either, because I'm a first generation college student. Neither of my parents went to
Wow.
college. None of my One of my grandparents went to college for a year, a little over a
Mm.
year at Northwestern on a athletic scholarship, and then he got a lung disease, and couldn't play sports and lost his scholarship.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
that's it. That was like our university heritage right there. I did have an uncle. I had a couple of uncles who went to college, and so they were examples, collateral examples, off to the side. But and so things don't come easy for me, and have never come easy for me in college. Just reading complex material.
Mhm.
Um, it's cost me probably double than what someone growing up in a very intellectual household would have been done. So I can remember in high school reading my brother's philosophy books. He was going to a community college in a philosophy class, and I got his books, and it's like, I don't understand this at all.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
forced myself to read it and understand it, to figure it out.
Mm.
I took it as a challenge. So that's kind of my approach. It's got to be all or nothing, um, for some things.
Yeah.
Some things.
Yeah.
There's other things that I play softball and basketball, and it's not all or nothing for those. I'm very happy to be mediocre in those things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in, I think a lot of us in different areas
Mhm.
can approach life with a lackadaisical attitude.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And as somebody who has had to reach that point, in saying it's got to be 110% if I want to pursue this,
Mhm.
how do you think, or what's your advice for people who are in that space that they don't know how to be anything other than lackadaisical? I'm sure you run into that with young students, especially.
I do, and I do get students who it seems that academics weren't their main priority as
Sure.
undergraduates in college,
Hmm.
which is fine. I tell them that it's fine. I will get students occasionally will say, "Can I take the exam in another time because I really want to go to this concert?" And I say, "Gosh, how big is this concert for you?" And it's like, really, it's my favorite band. I've never seen them. They're finally coming to town or whatever. And I said, "Go," but I can't give you, and you can't do everything. I'm
Mhm.
not going to give you. I can't establish rules just for you. If I
Right.
establish rules for every single student, my life will be chaos. I'm already very busy, so
Mhm.
we have to have one set of rules that everyone has to live by. But my gosh, go to the concert. It's
Mhm.
that important to you. And the exam's the next day. I mean, you might be a little hungover and tired, but who knows? Maybe you'll still ace it anyway. So try to do both, but you can't do everything at once. Um, and that's just life. That's life. It's not just my classes, it's life in general.
Right.
So but I tell them, if they're thinking about graduate school, I say, do it because you love it. And if
Mhm.
you love it, you'll put your 100% into it. But if you're
Mhm.
just doing it as a sacrifice, and there might not be a job at the end of the rainbow, don't do it.
Mhm.
People have told me that education is the one thing you can't take away from somebody. You
Mhm.
can take someone's spouse away, you can take someone's friends, or you can take someone's parents away. But you can't take education away. And so enjoy those years if you can. If it's a sacrifice to learn about anthropology or whatever discipline, and or if you can't stand being under the thumb of of professors, and some people can't, they cannot treat professors as authorities.
Mhm.
Including in the subject matter and whatever. And if you can't handle that, don't do it. Don't
Mhm.
do it. If if there's any doubts at all that you're not going to enjoy the next 5 to 8 years, don't do it.
Right.
Right.
Enjoy what you're doing,
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
or find something that you do. Find something that you do enjoy, because that's a lot of years um, to be spending sacrificing. You know, d- you know, do what you like. That's one of the advantages we have. In our society, so many choices. Sometimes it's a burden to have so many choices. I think that's what bogs students down more than anything else is I've got all these choices, and if I make one, I'm going to have to shut all these other ones out.
Yeah.
So we just have so many choices. Open up a menu, go to Subway. You've got like 30 ingredients that you got to choose from on your sandwich. All these career options, and even within, say you pick political science, there's 50 ways to go in political science.
Mhm.
And students don't want to give up. They don't want to shut the doors to other things.
Yeah.
Some do, but
Mm.
some don't. And so they stay kind of stagnant, waiting for something to hit them in the face, or a path
Sure.
to open up. And maybe that could be a good approach for them too. Wait for an opportunity to come to you, but you can't wait forever. You know. Yeah.
Or you can, and
My
Yeah.
grandfather used to tell my dad, either you can make a decision or life's going to make a decision for
That's
you.
right. That's exactly right. That's wisdom right there. Yeah.
right.
It
Mhm.
can be harsh, but
That's the
I think it's
grandfather's
pretty
wisdom.
true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a follow up to this, just scratch at this a little bit more. And that is in for you, this
Mhm.
point of do something that you love. How did you know? What was your knowing about pursuing the graduate studies in anthropology all the way through knowing I've got a 5 to 8 year stint here?
Mhm.
How did you know I love this enough
Yeah.
to step in?
Well, I never got tired of it. I never
Mm.
got tired of learning. And I
Mhm.
feel so lucky to be in a university environment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're interested in learning, geez, there's just so many opportunities. There's talks. I always regret. I'm so regretful that, darn, I couldn't go to that talk today. I couldn't go to that
Hmm.
presentation. I couldn't go to that performance
Mhm.
because I just didn't have the time. But if you do have the time, you can fill it up with very interesting, smart people. I am
Yeah.
surrounded with people who are a lot wiser than I am, and it's great.
Mhm.
It's really great. But that's me. That's what I'm interested in. Other people are into video games, and other people are into soap operas, or watching a lot of screens, um, social media, whatever. So, but I just love to learn and put things into context and learn new things. Things with AI, for example,
Hmm.
that has created all sorts of other problems, but also all sorts of other opportunities with students, and
Mhm.
teaching, for that matter,
Yeah.
that we're still trying to get a handle on. But I tell my students about AI. The reason I tell you to be very careful with it is because it's usually wrong.
Mm.
The stuff that I know really well, and I know that I know it really well, AI doesn't get it right. It
Mhm.
doesn't get it right. It gets in the ballpark. Sometimes
Right.
it's just flat wrong,
Mhm.
and so I'm starting to teach my students to critique AI.
Mhm.
No, you start with AI. What does AI say? And now we've learned this stuff. How can you correct it? Because
Mhm.
AI draws stuff from across the internet. I mean, it doesn't
Right.
Right.
necessarily pick the best sources.
Right.
Right.
We can put anything on the internet you want to.
Mhm.
And so that's how I'm getting my students to think more critically about AI, but don't abandon it. You
Mhm.
know, it's a starting point,
Yeah.
is what I tell them.
Yeah. For me, I think of it, Brent, as brainstorming is what I feel like I use
Yes.
it for. Yeah,
Yes.
Chat and I have had several arguments about things.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. They don't listen very well. Talk about not listening very well.
No, and I'll sometimes, what did I tell it the other night? I think I was like, you need to get your game on because this is really poor performance.
Yeah.
And it took it personally, did
Yes.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the university level, things are at the cutting edge. We're trying to figure out how to use this stuff,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and what all the disadvantages are. And so it's fun to be at the cutting edge of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Academics isn't always at the cutting edge. Sometimes we're, far behind on lots of things, but usually we can bring in the freshest ideas, come and
Mm.
speak at universities. If they're not professors, they're invited to come and speak. So it's
Mm.
such a great atmosphere, and I never want to leave the university. I've been spoiled, by being around universities my whole life.
Yeah.
There's we were up in Chicago over the weekend, and my daughter lives near the Loyola campus, so we were going on walks for coffee and that sort of stuff, and just so we would be in the midst of campus. And it took me back to many years ago when I was at the University of Missouri. But there's and I'm sure I experienced it differently than you, because I don't consider myself to be an academic, but um, there's a sense of there's just an energy on college campuses, like a sense of hope that
Yeah.
permeates the whole place. And I love that
Yes.
part of it. When we've been to see Luke at KU, and just anywhere, they all seem to have that feeling, and it's great.
Yes. And I have a lot of faith in the coming generations from the students I've been teaching lately. They're not all the brightest stars in the sky. They have, like I say, everybody has their strengths, and emotional or intellectual or whatever. Um, but we talk about Christopher Columbus, for example, in our class. He was not a nice guy.
Yeah.
He
Right.
enslaved people. He
Yeah.
tried to convince the kings of Spain to enslave these people. There's a lot of money to be made from all these Indians, and yet, some politicians want to praise Columbus because he was a white guy who led to the invasion of the Americas, and the takeover of the Americas, largely by Europeans. Um, they see that. We discuss that, and they know what's the right approach to take. We talk about, if we raise the issue of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and I make a sarcastic remark and say something like, we can't say that anymore. We have to say homogeneity, inequity, and exclusion from now on, because that's politically correct nowadays.
Now.
Um, they laugh. They
Yeah.
they know what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
and they know what's right and what's wrong.
Mm.
Um, um, they know how to. They're very I mean, it's not a good sample because they decided to take indigenous traditions of Latin America. There's a certain kind of student that wants to learn about
Right.
other people, so the sample is a little bit skewed. But nevertheless, um, I'm learning to trust their ethics. You know, um,
Nice.
I have faith in the future that
Mm.
things aren't going in the long run, are not going in a totalitarian direction. By totalitarian, I mean executive, legislative, judicial branches all going in one direction and not
Right.
allowing any dissent,
Yeah.
or any opinions other than their own.
Mhm.
These students, I think, are savvy enough to not let that happen.
Mhm.
At least in my class. Anyway, like I says,
Yeah.
it's not a sample of the United States, but yeah,
I have a lot of hope too.
yeah,
Yeah. I work with a lot of different ages, and I have a very diverse client population, and I do have a lot of hope.
Yeah. I mean, I see the negatives too. I see meanness and bullying and our kids' schools but the vast majority of students know that that's wrong.
Right.
You know that that's wrong, and making fun of people of how the way they look and so on and so forth. That is, most of them know that's wrong. We have good school teachers. I mean, if you look at our school teachers, they're not getting paid very much for all the work they do and what they have to put up with. We have all sorts of kids, including violent kids, throwing chairs and stuff in the classroom. And they doing it because they love the kids, they love the country, they love the town, and they have faith, So I just hope that our schools don't change very much because teachers are really putting it on the line to create the next generation. In some ways more than the parents are. And sometimes the parents, you got two parents working and they only see their kid an hour or two a day, and the teachers are in front of them 6-7 hours a day, So got to give it a lot to those teachers. I also, when I learned their teaching techniques, they really put me to shame. That's one of the things about college professors. We get very little training about teaching.
Right.
I had a 1-credit course about teaching, and I had an orientation, like a 2-day orientation before I took my first teaching assistantship position, and that was it. But
Wow.
teachers, they get a degree in teaching, and those K through 12 teachers, they have all sorts of techniques and wisdom that I don't have as a college professor. And I took a group of 14 K through 14 teachers to Guatemala on a Fulbright group study abroad a couple of decades ago. And man, I just learned, they put me to shame. I was listening to them, what kind of lessons plans they were going to do with this material and knowledge they're picking up in Guatemala, which is what it was all about. It's like, oh boy, I need to go back to the drawing board because they can teach circles around me. And they don't get the respect that a college professor gets,
Right.
But they do it out of the love of those kids, love of the future, hope in the future. So that's good to see still.
Yeah, that's a nice perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, Brent. I obviously have my small world that I live in. I mean, we obviously meet a lot of people on the podcast, but there is an awareness that young people have of the world that I did not have. And I don't even know if it was possible for me to begin to understand when I was 22. I mean, I know for sure the conversations that Walker and I have with the kids at the dining table when we're having a meal together are not the conversations I was having with my parents.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
I think so too. I think they've become more sophisticated. I mean, there's just more knowledge and information available. In my class, if I talk about something that they've never heard of and they seem fascinated about it, they race to their phones and look up things on their phone, maybe what AI says or Wikipedia, or I don't know what they're looking at, but they're like shaking their head like, yeah, wow, that's cool. I didn't know about that. I feel a little bit challenged when they feel like they have to go. I sometimes feel like they're double checking me.
They're fact checking you.
They're fact checking me. But I also like the fact that they're interested enough to look it up.
I agree.
And they can do that. I couldn't do that. We had to go to an encyclopedia, a set of encyclopedias, when I was growing up.
Yeah. I was an encyclopedia reader. I think, did you read encyclopedias growing up, Brent?
Sometimes we didn't have one in my house until like I was in high school. So
Okay.
I can remember going to friends' houses and they had pictures and everything. It's like, oh, I could sit down all afternoon and just kind of thumb through these encyclopedias. That was where knowledge was.
Yes.
Mhm.
You had to look something up. You went to encyclopedia. Now it's
Yeah.
all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are more sophisticated, more knowledgeable. I mean, they're just as fragile, maybe even more fragile in many ways than we
Yeah.
were.
Mhm.
Less self-assured.
Mhm. Well,
But
constantly bombarded with information, whether they want to receive it or not. It's just there. The stimulation is
yeah,
constant. Mhm.
they sent us. They did a survey of incoming first-year students
Mm. Mhm.
over the summer. And maybe they did this during orientation or something. I don't know. But coming into KU, and
Okay.
over 60% of them said they expected to use KU's mental health services during their
Wow.
time.
Wow.
It's like,
Wow.
that's shocking. I
Yeah.
bet in my generation it was probably 1 or 2%, And so
Right.
Yes.
they're
Right.
also learning to use it.
Mm.
Maybe they're learning to recognize, but I think the problems are also more complicated and, nowadays.
Mhm.
I don't completely understand it because people talk about social media and I don't use it. I
Mhm.
rarely use it, so I don't really understand any of that. Don't have really
Mhm.
time for it. Other
Mhm.
people say you should make time for it professionally because that's how you establish yourself in this new world.
Mm.
Mm.
But uh, I haven't taken a deep breath and jumped into that yet. I know those waters are really deep, you know.
Yeah, Brent, it's an interesting perspective, and not that, we don't hear it and know it. Obviously, Walker and I do a podcast and put ourselves out there, but um, I don't know. I think it all depends on what we want. And if it's not something that you wanted and what you did was enough,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, social media. I mean, I can attest to the amount of time that I have to spend negotiating social media for the podcast is a lot.
Well, and it seems to be one of those things, but if you like it, kind of like going to graduate school, then do it. But if,
Mhm.
if it really bums you out every time you get and the students are drinking this through a fire hose.
Yeah.
The first
Right.
thing they do when they walk out of class is they are walking. I almost run into them on my bike. I'm trying to park my bike and they're zigzagging, looking like stones, and the world doesn't exist. I mean,
Right.
Mhm.
people get
Yeah.
hit by cars because they were just looking at their phone.
Mhm.
Um, so they're really living in that alternate reality, and I frankly I don't know how that
Mhm.
affects somebody. I don't, uh,
Yeah.
because I'm not doing. There's a place where I don't have any experience, uh,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's got to be impactful, like incredibly impactful.
oh, I think so. Walker and I are currently doing an experiment with social media. Um, we have we're charging our phones in the other room at night
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
that we're not going to sleep looking at social media or waking up looking at social
Or
media.
hearing those dings ding every time a text comes.
Mine's on silent all
Mine's
the
on
time. I
silent
can't
too.
handle that.
I
I
couldn't do
haven't
it.
learned to do that. I've just learned to ignore the dings.
Oh, no, mine's on silent most of the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. But it is an interesting, process to just be aware, an opportunity for you to be aware of yourself, and the impact that looking at your phone has on you and the amount of data you take in. It's a fascinating experience. I use it mostly for learning about other people. I don't
Hmm.
read posts as much as I read comments, because
Hmm.
comments help me understand different perspectives that people have, that
Yeah.
I would never even have considered. I mean, I often say, "Huh, interesting. I
Yeah.
never would have thought that." Um,
Yeah.
and so it's
Yeah.
very helpful for me. in that
It's
way.
just another level of sociality, it's a whole other
Sure.
For her.
Sure.
For others who are more, I guess I would say I'm younger in that respect of my life. I'm reactive to the comments, and then I just get all worked up. So I can't look at those
Yeah,
objectively. And
that's why I hesitate. I know I've seen people respond to some of my things, and they would never talk to me like that face to face, probably.
no.
Uh, and it's like that could ruin your day. I mean, you can ruin many days. What people tell you if you let it get to you. But
We
that's
did.
also
We
what
had
they're
this.
trying to do, it seems. They're trying to get to you. They're trying to get under
Yes.
your skin.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
We did a post for World Peace Day a few weeks ago, and I was just sharing that my philosophy of life used to be, if you came at me with a knife, I'd pull out a gun. If you came with a gun, I'd pull out a missile. And that I'd learned to actually, it's much better to pause and reflect before I
Right.
respond to people. Well, you wouldn't believe the comments that came back on that. And so I went through the whole process that you're saying that might happen. And yes, I was offended by what people had to say, because you're going to get people killed saying things like that. And if you want to have a toe tag and a body bag, that's great for you. But in any event, I was just, yeah, exactly. And so it's difficult for me, and it's difficult just to read what other people comments on other people's posts too, just because I get riled up in all the political.
Goes back to the 90s, I would say, where
Yeah.
the politeness of our government, people polite, it hasn't always been that way, obviously, but there was a certain gentlemanly and gentlewomanly way that you carried yourself, and then it just got really nasty in the 90s. I can remember, and kind of shocking, and whereas when I was growing up, our leaders tried to calm us down. There was a lot of animosity in the 60s and 70s, but the leadership tried to calm things down and create unity as best they could, it seemed, from my perspective. And everybody sang the national anthem, and everybody, you know, celebrated this country for what it was. But nowadays, you don't get that. It's us against them, and
Yeah.
it's too bad. Too
Mm.
bad.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like we're constantly in a social experiment, and that people are often trying to figure out what our patterns are so that they can manipulate our behavior as best
Yes.
they can.
Yes, definitely.
And often with the result being more money in their pocket, regardless of what it
Yeah.
is that they're
Yeah.
selling.
Yeah.
I think we as individuals aren't important. It's really our patterns that are important.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah, our culture. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, that's the other thing, news. Like, I can remember the news got something wrong. If ABC or CBS or NBC or PBS got something wrong in the news, it was a scandal.
mm,
Nowadays, you preach to your audience. And
Yes.
whatever your audience wants to hear, and how do you know your audience? Because you've clicked certain things, or and they're tracking, like you say, our patterns, and
yeah,
then they just give you what you want.
yeah,
And so that's a shame too, that independent news seems to be going by the wayside slowly but
mm,
surely. And I don't it's hard for me to sort out, you know, what has a political edge and what doesn't
mhm,
anymore. I mean,
mhm,
it doesn't, there's some stations that doesn't take me hard. It's not difficult to sort out at all.
mhm,
Everything's got a political edge coming out of certain channels and stations, and
mhm,
um, but I'm always trying to look for that independent news, and
mm,
it's not easy to find anymore like it was growing up.
Right.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I use chat for often is when I see something and I'm not sure, I'll take a screenshot and I'll ask chat to do research and to give me multiple perspectives. I
Oh,
also ask it to give me all bias that's presented.
really? That's
Um,
great.
mhm. And so it's been helpful for me. I use chat a lot, a
Hmm.
lot. Luke
Yeah.
says, Luke says, I don't know many people that use chat like you do. And I was like, yeah, well, I do have that brain that likes data, and it's a way for me to um, just to keep learning more perspectives. And then, it links all the research. I have a paid version, so it links all the research and I can, go in deeper. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting to me. But the bias piece has been very, very helpful for me. And all,
Yeah. That's great.
yeah, yeah.
That's something too that I've tracked, in the really getting going in the 1980s. I mean, it has roots deeper than this, but the idea of everything's relative,
Mm,
and it is. But they're also facts are facts. I could
yes,
jump out my window right now, and I can't. Hitting the ground is not relative.
right.
You know,
You will.
dying is not relative. Things,
Mhm.
you can interpret what I did when I jumped out the window and why I did it and so on and so forth. But facts are facts. I jumped out the
Mhm.
window and hit the ground. And so that kind of that relativism started on the left, from what I could
Mhm.
tell. But I can remember immediately other people on the left saying that's a dangerous thing. If it's just
Mm,
all relative, then anybody can create anything. And now we're seeing it on the right. You
right.
know, people who I know who are on the right saying, well, it's all relative anyway. You've got facts. Somebody
Mm,
got killed. This is happening. Well, that's your perspective, and so
mm,
no, some things are
mm.
actually accurate and some are inaccurate,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so if you are, and I've had graduate students argue this with me, well, that, they were saying, well, that's not the way indigenous people see it. And it's like, some of them probably do that way, and either way, facts are facts. This happened or it didn't happen,
Mhm,
but to say it didn't, well, that's your interpretation for something that actually happened.
mhm,
Um, that's taking away political agency.
mm.
It's taking away the ability to decide and fix something. It's passivity. Ultimately, it's to passivity and
Right.
nihil. Yeah, and it goes both ways now. I mean, the right is using it more than the left, far as I can tell. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, what
So,
was it you said your grandfather said about if you don't make a choice, the world will make the choice for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, mhm.
Mhm.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That goes with accuracy and facts and truth.
Mhm,
Hmm.
mhm. Yeah. Well, Brent, I know we're out of time, and
Yeah.
I know
Close
you
to
have to
your
go
deadline.
too. Yes.
Mhm.
Any final things that you want to share?
um, no, I want to thank you for the work that you do. It's a
Mm,
great career that you two are working in right now, helping people think about these things. Um, so I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you for your time and your thoughts and just sharing part of your story.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.